To get started, let's take a look at some of the key features of log analytics. Well, the first one is that it plays the central role in monitoring. So it's not necessarily the tool that is doing all the metrics and performance data gathering. That's typically done on other systems, maybe the Azure PaaS services, maybe your Windows event logs, things like that. But everything is funneled into log analytics, and it's a central role that it plays in bringing all of this data together. The next thing is data sources, and we've also got other log analytics sources which we combine when we talk about this. And data sources are things you can connect log analytics to. So these could be virtual machines that you want to plug in and get data on. These could be system log events, Windows log events, performance events, etc. And then you've also got other log analytics sources, so things like Security Center and App Insights, which use their own sort of log analytics under the covers as well. And so these are two sets of sources that you can use, whether you're manually saying, hey, I want to get data from this machine, or I want to ingest data from other log analytics sources native to Azure. Then we've got the concept of search queries, which you'll see a lot of in the demonstration. So again, I encourage you to check that out because this will talk everything through. But once you've got all that data in there, we do queries on it to then output the data. And there's a variety of output options available to us, as you'll see. In fact, if we look at the log search use cases, and if we look on the left-hand side, first of all, we've got things like Azure Monitor, Virtual Machines, Operations Manager, that's SCOM if you're using that on premises, that System Center Operations Manager is what that stands for. You've got Application Insights, Azure Security Center, PowerShell, Data Collector, all these different sources of data that come in. The incoming data is automatically indexed, data types and tables are automatically created, and then the data is available for log searching and smart analytics to multiple channels, and those channels you see on the right hand side. So we can design and test queries in the log analytics engine, we can visualize data in the Azure portal, we can send a log analytics search query and design it so that it triggers a logic app, or perhaps sends an alert, or perhaps goes to Power BI and we've got a whole visualization there. So you can kind of see the role it's starting to play. It's kind of that middle piece that we have here, and it brings all of this together. If we look then at the architecture, on the left-hand side, to kind of expand upon that, we have our data sources. We also have the concept of solutions. So solutions are third-party solutions that you can plug into log analytics. In fact, it's kind of a marketplace for them, where you can go in and say add things like Network Watcher and other services that are out there. And then all that data comes in, it creates these records, and then you perform your log searches against these records and then say, okay, I want to alert on that. I want a dashboard for that log search. So I want Power BI, etc. In fact, if we go a little bit further and we look at things like the data sources and break them out, you've got logs and performance there, plus those third-party solutions, and you can see that data comes in and creates those records, but they're in a series of tables. In fact, if you look at it again another layer deeper, and we say, look, Windows event log comes in, it goes into the event log table. Syslog goes into syslog. Agents might go into heartbeat if it's something where we're just checking if something's online or not, like up-down type alerting. Custom logs, alert rules. You can see they've got all these tables there. And what you will notice, and this will be expanded upon when you go through the demonstration, but you've got this concept in the query. You see where it says event and then union syslog. So you can query across multiple tables. And again, that'll become more important a little bit later on, but worth noting for right now. If we look at those data sources, this is a summary of the ones that are available to you. So you've got the concept of custom logs, first of all. Those are text files on Windows or Linux agents containing log information, and they go in the event type log name _CL. We've got Windows event logs, which are event type event, Windows performance counters, which are under perf, Linux performance counters, also under perf, IIS logs, which are W3C, IIS log, and syslog, which are under syslog, which are syslog events on Windows or Linux computers. The last thing we'll leave you with in this lecture are some search query fundamentals, which I encourage you to write down or just make sure you've committed these to memory, as they will help you tremendously when you're getting started with log analytics. To begin with, start with the source table that you're focused on. So if you're focused on event logs, let's start with the event table. Then follow on with a series of operators. So perhaps I'm doing a query where I want events on a specific computer. That would be my first operator to set the condition to be that computer. Then perhaps I want a specific event ID on that computer. I use pipe to separate out additional operations. So now I'm starting to narrow down my search in particular for that event table. But now if I want to join other tables and workspaces, I just need to use that union command that I showed you in the example earlier, and then I can search across multiple tables. So perhaps I'm looking at errors in IIS on systems that are showing a high CPU performance metric. So the performance metric will come from the perf table. The application insights table will provide perhaps my transaction times for my users that are accessing my website. But I can combine these using union, so I can get a query that says, okay, when the transactions hit a certain threshold and the CPU is this high, I've got a correlation here that I can work with. And with that, this concludes this lecture series, and hopefully this gives you the fundamentals you need. There are definitely questions starting to appear for log analytics on the exam, so definitely make sure you know how to query around, especially as you hit the upcoming demonstration.